Many people compile lists of things that are good and things that are bad, and they usually label them as Mount Rushmores. This is the third time that I'm making such a list. My name is Phil, and you're listening to The Lip. Yes, as this episode is being recorded right now in front of you, it is October 28th, 2025, and you will be listening to this episode on November 1st, 2025. And it's very interesting because as I was looking at the fact that I was making this episode, Mount Rushmore number 3, it was really interesting to me because I went back to make sure that I tried not to double up on some of the episodes that I did before with like Mount Rushmore 1 and 2, so I didn't try to repeat myself as far as the lists that I was going to create. And it turned out I found out something even more interesting. It seems as if the time that I released these episodes happened to be the first of a month. So that's kind of interesting. I'm one episode away from having 4 Mount Rushmore episodes on the first of a month. It's odd. It's interesting. Very interesting. So I'm probably going to keep that as a trend. So if you are looking for the next Mount Rushmore number 4, just keep in mind that it's going to happen in a month that the first of that month is going to be a Saturday. So if you don't see a Saturday as the first of the month, you can guarantee that it will not be a Mount Rushmore episode. That's just the way I'm going to kind of play this thing out. Speaking of things that are happening on the first of the month, turns out that, well, that very interesting change in time is coming up. Daylight savings is about to end, and we're going to get an extra hour on, well, as this is being recorded, it's going to be November 2nd. Early in the morning, around 2 o'clock, it's going to change. So the day you're hearing this on November 1st, just know that, well, you're going to get an extra hour of sleep. So that's a positive thing. I've mentioned it a few times how you could get rid of, well, no, not daylight savings time. I haven't mentioned how you get rid of that. You just keep it in one spot. Simple as that. But my favorite thing is the leap day and how you could eliminate that. And I think that that's a cool thing. But at the same time, it's also neat to have that weird February 29th. What are you going to do? But I personally think that I'll get into it. Might as well. I know I'm not into this has nothing to do really with the Mount Rushmores, but like I said before, hear me out. If you were to take those 24 hours of extra time and add 1 hour every other month for 4 years to pick a day in that month. So you could have an extra hour to do something with in a day. So you would have a 25-hour day in every other month for 4 years. I think that people could utilize an extra hour for a lot of different things. Sleep, a little extra rest, you could do something. It would certainly help you get that 10,000 hours that you require to master a thing a little easier. You never know. But that's just my take on that. But like I said, that's not really anything to do with this show. And as a result, I'm going to go into the fill in the blanks. Now, fill in the blanks question today is, which do I like more? Fall back or spring forward in time? Well, as somebody who's worked overnights on both of those days, when the time went forward and when the time went back, I'm 100% time going forward in the spring. Don't mind that at all. That's fine. Hi, Phoenix. I think that I'm perfectly good with the time going forward as opposed to the time going back, because when you work overnight and the time goes forward, your shift is a little shorter. When you work overnight and the time is falling back, well, now you've actually got an extra hour in your shift. And that is miserable. Sorry to put it that way, but it is, because especially when it kind of gives you a false sense of what you're doing, because you have to gauge what you're doing a little bit differently, because now you're going to finish a little sooner as far as the work you're doing. So you might do a little bit more, or at the same time, it happened to me once or twice during that nonsense of the extra hour, you might actually slow your progress down because you know that you have more time. And any time that you have more time and you slow yourself down, that's really kind of dangerous, especially when you're working, because you catch yourself getting a little complacent, especially when you know it's coming a couple days in advance. You're like, yeah, I know I'm going to be working that extra hour, so I'm going to just sort of slow it down a little bit. And then you realize that that extra hour ended up costing you time as far as what you were doing, because you were messing around and not doing what you were supposed to do, so you wasted that extra hour. And even your regular time ends up becoming a little bit tricky, because now you just keep in your head that you have all this extra time, and next thing you know, you've fallen behind as opposed to being ahead. It's a very simple thing that can happen. So without a doubt, I would much rather have the spring forward, because now you have to have extra pep in your step in order to make sure you get through, because you don't have as much time. So to answer the question of which do I like better, which would be between falling back in time or springing forward in time, I'm 100% Phoenix, come on up, pal. I like the spring forward. It's the only way you can go, because at least you know that you can hurry up and get things done. You're not gonna get caught up. Say hi to everybody, pal. Okay, now it's time for me to ring the bell and start the main event. Mount Rushmore number 3. For those of you who haven't heard these episodes, because last one I did was a while back, it turns out that I have specific lists that I think should be categories for what are great things or what are bad things. And I think that in those promos that you would set up, as far as these items go, hi Phoenix, no claws, no claws. I think that these items are worthy of being in the Mount Rushmore category. And what should be on the Mount Rushmore of these things. And I may actually freestyle one, because I'm thinking, yeah, I think I might freestyle one. And I may start with the freestyle one right now. I'm going to start with the freestyle. No. We'll start at the beginning and we'll work our way down. First one is, of course, all of you know that I'm a wrestling fan. Been so forever. And I'm not going to give you a Mount Rushmore of wrestlers, because I've done that. But a more different Mount Rushmore. Something a little more interesting, I think. How about a Mount Rushmore for wrestling entrances? Entrances, yes. In the last several years, decades, wrestlers have come to the ring with music and some sort of fanfare, and I think that there is definitely a cause and case for some of these entrances to be far better than others. Really, just they get you ready for the match at hand. Sometimes, unfortunately, the entrance is better than the match or the wrestler who's actually in the match. Now, as far as it goes, the ones that I have here for my Mount Rushmore, absolutely, you have to say that the whole package with these wrestlers, it doesn't get any better. From their entrance to the end of the match, everything in between is just amazing. And of course, I have to look at it from all the aspects between the music, the look of the athlete when they're coming to the ring, and just how much you really want to see that person in the match. And of course, for Mount Rushmore, some people give them a what do you call it? A value as far as which one is better than the other. But in my opinion, when you're talking Mount Rushmore, all things are equal. You just have to put them on the mountain, and that's the way I'm looking at it. All these are equal. There is no 1, 2, 3, 4. It is just all of these. These four are the best. And the first one that I'm going to go in, like I said, it's in no particular order. It's just how I wrote it down. Triple H's ring entrance when he was in his prime. Something about that music. It's all about the game. Let's put it this way: that music has been piped in through several professional sports. When they're in the middle of changing things, they'll play that music because it's a great song. They will use it in all kinds of things. It's really good stuff. Motorhead did a good job with that one. It fits the man. It's a little gritty, and it just exudes like, yep, I am the guy who you need to try to beat, but you're not going to be able to beat me. His lighting is great. He just comes down for the most part. Just his wrestling trunks, knee pads, taped up wrists. He gets into the ring, and then he does the one thing which has become totally iconic in wrestling, and it is he just takes a sip of water, and he just looks up and he spits the water up. Now, it's the weirdest thing in the world that just spitting the water up in the air is become such an iconic thing that they want him to do it to this day, even though he walks to the ring now in a suit because he's a high executive. They still want him to do it. And that's all because it was such a great entrance that he had. And take a look. I mean, you don't have to go to the Peacock and watch an entire wrestling show. Just go to Google if you're really Google or YouTube and just check out Triple H's ring entrance. And the way you know that ring entrance is such a great one is because when he does that when he spits the water in the air, you can look around and all you see is flashes because people are taking pictures. Oh man, just spitting water in the air. That was just a great entrance. Another one that's outstanding is a much more modern one. Rhea Ripley's entrance. A really good wrestler, really young. I believe she just turned 29. She's got a lot of accolades. She's from Australia, and my goodness, her presentation changed from a little bit lighter to a darker persona, which she's had for the last several years, which is the reason why she is just gone over the top, won lots of women's titles, and her entrance is something to behold. It's incredible. It's super intimidating, and when she comes to the ring, the first thing you think of is, well, there is literally no woman on the roster who can beat her. When she comes to the ring with her entrance, it's really good. It's over the top. It's one of the coolest entrances there has ever been. And I can certainly say that having seen it live at WrestleMania, whew, it was definitely something that was like, man. And when they put her match for that entrance, it was the opening match of WrestleMania 40. And so the first image you get of WrestleMania 40, as far as a match goes, is Rhea Ripley coming to the ring. And my goodness, it was a great way to start the show because of her entrance and the presentation that she brings. It's incredible. Now, Rhea Ripley is an incredibly talented wrestler, and I don't know how much longer she's going to do this because, and I say it like that because she has a unique look, and it seems like a lot of wrestlers, well, a lot of the really interesting, unique wrestlers have been transitioning to movies, and I could definitely see her in some type of action movie, no doubt. And I could also see her doing a career of that. And I just hope that she continues to wrestle for a little longer before she does make that step, because I think it's inevitable. Now, on that same note, the next entrance is an older one, but it's definitely one of my favorite entrances. It's a tag team entrance. Now, her dark persona is incredible, and if she was, dare I say, 35, 40 years older, 30 years older, give or take, 30, 35 years older, she would fit in very well with the entrance that I'm about to mention now. She would be an outstanding part of this entrance. She would fit perfectly. And the entrance that I'm speaking of is Demolition, the tag team, Demolition, Axe and Smash specifically. Their entrance theme for a good, from I guess it was 87 when they came out, and they had that music all the way up until like 91, even when Crush was there. That entrance music that they had was probably the best song that wrestling has had. I mean, forget Hulk Hogan's music, forget anybody else's music. When Demolition's music played, it was like, whoa, these guys are here to take somebody out. They would come down with their masks on, face painted underneath, black with spikes. Some people compared them to the Legion of Doom or the Road Warriors, but their wrestling gear was totally different, and their wrestling ability was totally different. Yes, they brutalized people, yes, but Demolition actually would be willing to have good matches, and their mindset was always to have the best match. And those two guys were really good. Actually, they were friends. Whereas I've heard plenty of rumors about the Road Warriors that they really didn't like each other that much, especially towards the end. But the persona of Demolition walking to the ring, you just knew that you were going to see an incredible tag match when those two guys come to the ring. Man, Axe and Smash were the longest reigning tag team champions for a while until New Day came over and took that title from them. I think the Usos even broke that record, but boy, I'll tell you right now, if Demolition were current team now, or if those guys, the New Day and the Usos were tag team back then, Demolition would still be on top of either of those teams. They just would. Their presentation, their brutality, the way they moved in the ring was it was incredible. Both very talented guys, Axe and Smash. But for sure, Demolition's entrance, one to behold. Now, the final entrance that I have on Mount Rushmore is another one that's interesting. As I'm looking at this list, Triple H, Rhea Ripley, Demolition. That's the only one that I didn't actually see personally in the arena was Demolition. Boy, I wish I had. But this last one, oh yeah, I saw it a couple times. And the biggest one was SummerSlam 97 when this guy ended up winning the Intercontinental title and unfortunately hurting his neck, shortening his career. And that is Stone Cold Steve Austin. That entrance is like something to behold. Man, listen, if you never got to, if you were a wrestling fan and you were in that age group where I am, and you were in an arena where Stone Cold Steve Austin was about to enter, and you heard that glass break, you know what I'm talking about. It becomes totally deafening. The loud cheer immediately as soon as you hear the glass break, it's just like, okay, here he comes. And it just changes the entire night. No matter what's going on before it, no matter what matches are coming after it, when you heard that glass break, you are now ready for the best match that you were going to see with the best guy that you wanted to see. And boy, that entrance, so simple. And I think that's what makes it so interesting. Because Stone Cold Steve Austin didn't have any flashy colors or crazy things. In fact, everybody on this list, their main color happened to be black. All of them. Triple H, Rhea Ripley, Demolition, and of course Stone Cold Steve Austin. But his attire was the simplest of them all. Just plain black trunks, nothing on them. Black knee pads, nothing on them. Black boots, nothing on them. Black wrist tape. And he would wear a vest, which had a little something on it. But then you take the vest off, and what you get would be the guy who had the bald head, the goatee, and the very basic black trunks and knee pads and boots. But boy, it was something that you couldn't forget it. There's no way. It was an entrance that made you go, wow. And then, of course, he could back it up in the ring. He had great ability. He just made the entire night better. From between him being in the main event or being in the undercard, it didn't matter. He had something, and that entrance was just incredible. The genius behind that shattered glass just made something that it's still not topped in the wrestling world today. I mean, Cody has a nice entrance from time to time, and some of the other people have good entrances, Roman Reigns, but there's nothing like Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I can attest that I was there when it happened, and I mean, I still get a smile on my face just thinking about that SummerSlam when he walked to that ring, and you could hear that glass break, and like, oh boy, it was good. And those are clearly my Mount Rushmore for wrestling entrances. Triple H, Rhea Ripley, Demolition, Stone Cold Steve Austin. Their entrances above and beyond better than anything I've ever imagined. But, of course, I have an honorable mention, an entrance that I ever actually got to see in person. But boy, as soon as you heard that first guitar riff, you lost your mind. And that was the entrance of the Ultimate Warrior. When he ran down the ring, this big, crazy guy would run to the ring, shake the ropes like a maniac, and he would just pretty much beat his opponent super fast and run right back just as quick. But of course, he just looked crazy, and he kind of moved around like he was crazy, and his music was called Unstable. So that just puts it all together. Ultimate Warrior, definitely the honorable mention as far as entrances in wrestling go. Now, gonna move to nondescript situation here. Nondescript. We're not gonna focus on specific plays, but we're gonna focus on plays that have happened, and these clearly would be Mount Rushmore plays, and I believe that there are Mount Rushmore plays that have happened, but I'm not going to go specifics. They're types of play in sports that are on top, and they're the best things you could ever see. Again, no particular order. If you're a baseball fan and you get to see a triple play, where the defense has two guys on base most likely. It's what it's got to be. At least two men have to be on base, and there's a batter up, and the batter makes what you consider a fatal error because you have two runners on the bases. So you think you might have a chance to score something, right? No outs, two men on, one man at bat. The man at bat has a terrible hit. It doesn't do anything like he wants, and it's caught. But unfortunately, the other base runners had already taken off. Boom, boom. All three guys out. Triple play. 1, 2, 3. That's just, it's rare, but it'll happen. And it's got to be one of the best plays that you could ever see, period. A triple play. In football, I think that this absolutely earns a spot on the Mount Rushmore of just great possibilities and sports plays. And it'll happen sometimes. In football, sometimes you'll have a field goal or a punt or an extra point, and it gets blocked. Just as explanatory as that is, somebody just goes up and hits the football. When it's in the air before it gets too high. Punter gets a guy coming up and gets his hands up and knocks the football down, and the ball bounces. But now, this is what makes the play even more tremendous. If it's a field goal and the ball bounces backward and somebody picks it up and runs it to the end zone and scores a touchdown off of that block kick. The block kick that gets run back for a touchdown. Or the same thing with a punt. The punt gets blocked, and usually you're going to get a blocked punt situation when the team is backed up to their own goal line. So the punter doesn't have that much time to step forward. But if that punt gets blocked and the ball bounces, it's a beautiful thing about the oblong shaped football. It can bounce all around. It may not go out of bounds. It could bounce around just enough in the end zone so that the blocking team can pick it up and score a touchdown. There's just something cool about a blocked kick that scores a touchdown. It's incredible. It's a great play. It really is a great play. Now, I'm going to go towards the obvious basketball play. Doesn't matter what quarter it is. Doesn't matter if it's more dramatic, obviously, if it's the last shot in regulation or overtime. But it's still really cool when it happens at the end of a half or at the end of a quarter, where somebody is just about to take a shot and it just gets away before 00 hits, so the shot is counted and it goes in. A buzzer beater. That's just really cool. But it doesn't even have to be a 3. It can be any kind of shot. If you make that shot release and it goes in just before the clock expires on a quarter or a half, or of course it's 10 times more dramatic if it's at the end of the game. You're down by 1 and all of a sudden you get you release it just in time and it goes in and your team wins the game on a buzzer beater. There are as many basketball plays, or dare I say, there aren't many plays in general that are as dramatic or as cool as a buzzer beater. That is absolutely incredible. Any level, doesn't matter if it's high school or in the NBA, a buzzer beater is something that just makes everybody in the entire arena just lose their mind. Both the team that wins and the team that loses. Because, my goodness, they absolutely lose their mind for that buzzer beater. Now, here comes another one which is even more rare than a lot of the other ones because it's really one of the hardest to do. And that is, I know. Yesterday was National Black Cat Day, so Phoenix wants to be seen. Let everybody know it's National Black Cat Day. Yesterday. But now back to where we were. When a goalie in hockey is able to score a goal, that is cool. It's super rare, and most of the time it's going to happen in an end of game situation when the opponent pulls their goalie and the net is open. The goalie could be trying to just sort of get the puck out of his zone and gets a nice release when he hits it with his stick, and nobody on the other team can stop it, and it goes in the net. That happens sometimes, and even super rare, and it can happen because that's just the nature of the ice and how the puck moves. If the goalie can just get it just right, that puck could get past the other goalie on the other side. And it can happen from time to time, but it's super rare because you have to get it past 10 other actual skaters. Your team and the other team in order to get it anywhere near the net. So it's just super rare and super difficult, but it can happen, and it has happened where a goalie can score a goal in hockey. Those are some of my favorite plays, and without a doubt, the honorable mention as far as play types in sports that are the best, in my opinion, the honorable mention has to be the pick six in football. Just quarterback throws a touchdown pass, but unfortunately he throws it to the wrong team. It's the ultimate in demoralizing plays. It is. Now, it could break your entire team the rest of that game because you think you're feeling real good and all of a sudden your quarterback, boom, interception. That's bad. But at least your defense has a chance to rest for a second. But there's something so much worse when the quarterback throws an interception and it's taken all the way back for a touchdown, because now the offense that just threw the interception now has to go back on the field, and that thought is fresh in their mind. It's like they literally get 2 plays off and now they're back because the other team kicks the extra point and then the kickoff again for them to get the ball back. And after those 2 plays, they got to go right back on offense, and that interception is just burning a hole in the soul of the quarterback. And the offense, hopefully, isn't too demoralized, and hopefully they can get back on their horse and be ready for it. But it's hard for that to happen. It really is. And that's why it's an honorable mention, because it's a lot of fun to watch the football go run back in the other direction like that. Oof, really it is. We're going to stick with coaches. Since we're in the sports category now, I'm going to move down. And I'm going to say these are the coaches that I think in sports that are probably the best coaches. And say what you want about these people. I think that these are the coaches that they got to be the best. I'm going to go with Phil Jackson for basketball. Now, the man didn't win the most NBA championships. He won a lot of them. He won with the 3-peat for the Lakers in his last group. And then he had 2 3-peats with the Bulls. I mean, 3-peats. 3-peats. That's incredible when you think about it, right? The triangle offense, he utilized it very well with obviously Michael Jordan, and then Kobe worked it really well with Shaq. He had those two pieces on both teams that just made it so good. And then the outside shooting of guys like Robert Horry, and for the Bulls he had Tony Kukoc, man, defensive people like Horace Grant, Dennis Rodman throughout the years. He had all manner of just players and that he utilized, and the biggest part about it is they all had big personalities, and that's the number one thing that Phil Jackson was able to do, as they called him the Zen Master. He was able to get these larger than life personalities, Scottie Pippen and Jordan and Shaq and Kobe, to coexist for a length of time in order to create these teams, in order to do these magical runs. And truthfully, some people will be like, oh, anybody could have coached Jordan or Kobe to win a championship. Yeah, but could you coach Jordan or Kobe to coexist for as long as they did with Shaq and Pippen and Rodman? Could you? Would you be able to get one title out of that? Maybe, just on their pure talent. But would you be able to hold that team together for a couple seasons in order to create multiple championships? Hey, Phoenix, don't mess with the Red Hulk. Psst, psst. You can hang there. But let me tell you, a guy who has that sort of ability to create, not necessarily even to create the plays for the team, but it's how he was able to create unity amongst the players, and that's the difference. That's what made Phil Jackson a great coach. Now we're going to continue the theme of basketball, but we're not going to go pro. We're going to go college. Coach K. You know, Coach Krzyzewski. Coach K. Duke. Incredible coach. Won multiple championships as the coach for the Blue Devils. But in my opinion, one of his biggest feats was the Redeem team that went to the Olympics and captured gold after we had gotten, I believe it was the bronze, the Olympics prior. He was totally instrumental to creating a unity amongst those players who were from a bunch of different teams, who came together and created that Redeem team, and was part of the Olympic process for, I think, another, at least, was it 2 more Olympics? If my records are right. But he had a lot to do with it. And he was able to take those players, again, very similar to what Phil Jackson had done, and create that unity amongst those players. And that's what he does. And just like Phil Jackson, it wasn't even about the plays. It was about being able to keep these guys connected to the point where they could actually work together, which is so important. The ability to have them coexist and be willing to do what it took to work as a team. And that's what Coach K was able to do. And boy, you get somebody who can do that, that's how it all works. Now I'm going to move to football. And the only football coach that I can come up with off the top of my head that was in this category, and no, I'm not talking about the guy who was in New England. I'm talking about a college guy. I'm talking Nick Saban. This dude, before the NIL situation, which essentially changed his ability to coach college football because it turned it more like pro football. He was not a good pro football coach. When he went to the Dolphins, it didn't really work, but he had tremendous success in LSU. He won a national championship. And the reason was because he had an ability to tell the kids that he could get them to where they wanted to go. He could get them to the NFL. He could prepare them for that. And he prepared them for life. He was a good coach before the NIL. He won that title there. He did some serious work in LSU. And then obviously he went to Alabama and made people forget about Bear Bryant. It was almost like they just had the national championship trophy and they would just simply put Alabama's name on it. And every once in a while they had to scratch it out and put somebody else on there, like Auburn, Georgia. But for the most part, it was Alabama's trophy to lose, and it was because Coach Saban was that guy who led those teams all the way until this NIL deal changed it. Like I said, when that happened, it turned it more to almost professional football. And he just had a problem with coaching at that point. But boy, prior to that, you look at the NFL and several drafts during Saban's years as the coach of the Crimson Tide, and you'll see that there are multiple draft picks that you'd hear when they're calling their names from the University of Alabama, blank. And that's how it would go. It's like from the University of Alabama, blank. And these would be first round picks, like Quinn Williams, Tua, what was another one? It was an Alabama guy, Mac Jones, Julio Jones. That's crazy. They ran the football a ton, and Julio Jones was still one of those guys. Like, it's just like that. Just think about how incredible that team was because of Saban's influence. And those are just a handful of guys that I could think of that were from Alabama. It just continued to roll and roll and roll those Tide players right through. And that was just some of the first rounders. They also had second rounders, third rounders, fourth rounders. Whole draft classes were littered with people from Alabama. And then, of course, the coaching tree starts shifting because of that. Nick Saban was definitely a great coach, deserving of being on the Mount Rushmore of coaches, in my opinion. But I would be remiss for not saying who I believe may be, of course, my personal favorite coach. But if you look at what he did for the National Football League, the influence of his touched multiple Super Bowls, not just the ones that he won, but beyond that. If you look at his fingerprint, you can see his fingerprint on Super Bowls won by the Green Bay Packers, the presently the Kansas City Chiefs. You could see his fingerprints on, obviously, what other teams? There's a bunch. There's a whole bunch. Not just winning the Super Bowl, but having teams that played intensely good, that got to the Super Bowl. And of course, the team that he had the biggest fingerprint on was the 49ers. And that is the late, great, legendary coach Bill Walsh, the inventor of the West Coast offense. Now, granted, the West Coast offense doesn't look the way it did back then, but the pieces of the West Coast offense, the idea of the West Coast offense, definitely had an impact on a lot of championship teams. Like I already said, like the Chiefs with Andy Reid, I mean, his offensive philosophy is pretty much West Coast offense because he is part of that indirect or direct lineage from the tree of Bill Walsh. The Denver Broncos, not the Peyton Manning Broncos, but the John Elway Broncos that won those back-to-back Super Bowls. Remember his coach? Mike Shanahan. Mike Shanahan, who was part of the 49ers organization, who ran that West Coast offense, who won the Super Bowl for the 49ers last year that they won it. There's an influence there from the West Coast offense that had the fingerprints of Bill Walsh. There was numerous teams that had that same sort of philosophy. And you look at the quarterback whose job is to process information quickly, to throw the ball accurately, to run the ball with a lot of counters and zone and some traps. They're not necessarily looking to throw the ball 75 yards down the field originally, and even to this point, what happens is the game plan is usually 3 yards in a cloud of dust as far as the passing game goes. A lot of hitches, a lot of slants in the middle, a lot of ins and out patterns, hooks and curls. That sort of stuff is what they would utilize heavily. And Bill Walsh used a quarterback who didn't have the strongest arm in the world. But he had just a little bit of ability to move around, and that's what you need for the West Coast offense. You don't have to be full on Steve Young, but that helps. It definitely helps. And the fact that he was able to assemble the right pieces to his puzzle, both getting the coaches and the players, which is all a part of that fingerprint of Bill Walsh throughout the NFL with those teams that use the West Coast offense, which is, again, it's not the same as the one that Bill Walsh ran. There is a variation of it now because everybody spreads things out a little bit more, because originally the West Coast offense had the fullback, the halfback, usually only had 2 receivers, always had a tight end, sometimes 2 tight ends. But the idea, the philosophy of making sure that there's a lot of misdirection, making sure that, like I said, a lot of short patterns, and originally with Bill Walsh's agenda, and you can see that with some of these other teams, a little different with the 49ers now, but the philosophy originally back then for most teams was run the football right up the middle, constantly pound it, and then once everybody's in the box, then you can throw it over the top. The West Coast offense was different. The philosophy was, they used to say it was a finesse thing, because all those other teams were trying to punch the football up the middle, where the 49ers in Bill Walsh's strategy was to not necessarily have to do that. We want to run the ball, yes, but what if we throw it on those short patterns? Because if you throw those short patterns, now you have to spread the linebackers, spread the secondary out a little bit. The defensive line needs to get a little bit deeper splits because they're going to try to go pass rush. And once you've done that, you've now loosened up the defense so that there's actually running lanes naturally made, because they're trying to defend against those quick passes. It worked perfectly. It was magnificent. 5 Super Bowls worth. But that's what Bill Walsh did. And that's why I can't see any other coach being at the top of the list other than Bill Walsh. But I did say that, well, there is no 1, 2, 3, 4 on my Mount Rushmore. But when it comes to coaching, like I said, I definitely have Nick Saban, Coach K, Phil Jackson, but there is something special about Bill Walsh. He definitely kind of makes it a, yeah, yeah, he might be number 1 on that list, sorry. But the honorable mention, which I cannot forget, the honorable mention is former women's basketball coach from the University of Tennessee, Pat Summitt. She just a great coach, a great person, and the reason why I ultimately wanted to go with her as my honorable mention is because there was a story told by a prominent athlete who did not play college basketball, but asked her for advice from time to time. And she was willing to listen to that person and give advice to the best of her ability to this person. And this person was very indebted to that advice and was real happy that she was willing to take the time to give this individual that advice. And the person who told that story was alumni of the University of Tennessee, Peyton Manning. Yeah. Peyton reached out to Pat Summitt from time to time, and she helped him out. If she is willing to give advice to not only a player from a different sport, that's not just a coach, that's a really good person. And she is definitely an honorable mention. And if there were 5 slots on the Mount Rushmore of coaching, she absolutely gets in the middle of that group for sure. I, in fact, had a difficult time not just making it 5 slots because of the honorable mention for her. She's that good, and I think that she deserves it. Great coach. It's incredible. I actually only did 1, 2, 3 of the Mount Rushmores that I wanted to go to. I didn't get to one of the other ones. And I think I may just save it. I think I will. I'm going to hold off on these other ones. We're going to keep them back. Especially this one. Definitely going to have to remember this one. Because this one is one that I want to use. We're going to hold off on that for later, though. We're going to use that one. So, just know that I've got my first Mount Rushmore topic for Mount Rushmore number 4. We're going to go with it like that. Definitely. Based on the time that I'm looking at, man, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ring the bell. Mount Rushmore number 3, main event, is over. Now, we're going to go into a bit of the Spirit of the Week, and here it comes. I know that this may be a controversial take, but it shouldn't be that controversial. Halloween, as I'm recording, is a couple days away, but as this episode is being released, would have been the day after this episode's released. And I definitely believe that there is an individual who should be speared for their contributions to Halloween. And that person is the person who invented the candy corn. It's literally the most disgusting thing that has ever existed. And I saw it one time. I can't remember what it was. I hope I just dreamed it, but I have this weird feeling that I didn't. The worst thing that has ever existed in life, and that is a candy corn that was cotton candy flavored. I'm just saying, growing up around seaside area, literally seaside New Jersey, and being there a lot of times over the summer, the one thing that I detest on the same level as candy corns has to be cotton candy. Because if you've ever been around cotton candy when it's being made, when they're spinning the sugar, there is a sickly sweet smell. And to me, that smell is just nauseating. I can't deal with it. The smell of cotton candy, I just can't stand it. And like I said, I've been around it for years, and I just cannot, cotton candy, cannot deal with it. Smell of fresh cotton candy. Just, oh no. And then cotton candy in general, I can't stand the way it tastes. And obviously, nobody on earth likes candy corns. So for somebody to have created something, some Franken candy, between candy corns and cotton candy, it's just abysmal. And I do believe that the only way that we could have stopped that is by eliminating the person who came up with the person who came up with candy corns. Because if you got rid of that person, there wouldn't be no crossover. So the spear of the week, the inventor of the candy corn. 100%. Now, we're going to go into my football picks, which did not quite do as good as they did before. No. I had a horrible week 7. Oof. And week 8, not much better. Not much better at all. In fact, it was absolutely terrible. But the only good part about it was, I feel that I could have done so much worse. I really could have. And part of it is because I decided to change a pick. And if I didn't change that pick, I'd have been in the positive. Yeah, I would have been in the positive if I'd have been way ahead if I changed the pick. Week 7, overall record was just 21-14 after week 7. But now, my week 8 picks, I had the 49ers. I had changed my 49ers pick because I felt that the Texans were definitely on a slide and they could possibly pull this one off. But I was saying originally that the Texans were going to win, and I was hoping that I was wrong. But then I looked at the way they played against the Falcons, and I said, you know what? I think they could pull it off because the Texans are not really that good. And unfortunately, I changed my pick. I originally said the Texans were going to win against 49ers. But then I changed it to the 49ers over the Texans. And what happened was, well, the Texans did in fact beat the 49ers 26-15. And I changed my pick, so I lost. Another one I lost. I mean, come on. Bengals are just better than the Jets. The Jets are horrible, but not last week. Clearly, the Jets were 1 point better than the Bengals, which is pathetic. And both defenses were horrible because the score was 38-39. So nobody was stopping anybody. And That's how bad they are, because their defenses are so terrible that these offenses, which are horrible, are actually scoring over 35 points. They scored ridiculous numbers of touchdowns. Both teams, man. That's like 5 touchdowns apiece. Are you kidding me? And the fact that the Jets were even 1 point better than the Bengals, I never saw it coming. Jets won 39-38, and I lost. But the ones that I was right about, Denver bulldozed the Cowboys 44-24. I thought it was going to be 30-21, but still, hey, I got it right. Broncos won. Yeah, here's the other loss. I thought the Steelers were going to beat the Packers because it just seemed like they were better, but I was wrong. Steelers lost 25-35 to the Packers. And the Commanders, they did exactly what I expected them to do without Jaden Daniels. They lost. They lost big, 28-7 to the Chiefs. So this week I only won 2, and I could have won 3, but I only won 2, and I lost 3. So overall record has come to 23-17. Not the best, but still above 500. That's just pretty much where I live, just a little bit above 500. So I'm okay with that. But of course, my picks for week 9 and week 10. Week 9, I have the 49ers beating the Giants 2017. The Vikings gonna lose to the Lions 30-28. Broncos will win again against the Texans 27-24. Chiefs, they're back. I hate to say it, but they are 35-30 against the Bills. I think it's going to happen in week 9. Seahawks are going to beat the Commanders. I don't know if Jaden Daniels is going to be back, but it's a hamstring, so it's hard to tell. And even if he is, I just don't think, because they just lost their best receiver, McLaren. Excuse me. So I expect 24-21 Seattle. Week 10. I'm going out to week 10. Patriots will beat the Bucks. I'm calling that. 28-24. Ravens, as bad as they have been, I think that they're going to be good enough to beat the Vikings because they don't know what they're doing. 24-20. Commanders are going to lose again to the Lions this time. 35-27. 49ers are in a weakened state, but the trade deadline will have passed by then, and they will have gotten another player to fix the defensive pass rush, I believe. Maybe even 2. Brock Purdy should be healthy and possibly playing in this game, and it's the hated Rams, and they're playing in Levi Stadium. I don't see why the 49ers don't eke out another win against the Rams and beat them 23-17. The Eagles playing the Packers. Well, I think the Packers are turning into the real deal. They may be the NFC champions when this thing's over with. So I honestly think that it's 30-21 Packers over the Eagles. One more time, week 9, 49ers beat the Giants. Minnesota loses to the Lions. The Broncos beat the Texans. The Chiefs beat the Bills. The Seahawks beat the Commanders. Week 10, I say Patriots over the Bucks. The Ravens over the Vikings. Lions beat the Commanders. 49ers win against the Rams. And the Packers will beat the Eagles in week 10. That's how my football picks look. for the next couple weeks. Now it's time to hit the brakes on the show. First thing I gotta tell you is you can check me out on Instagram at Philip Henderson 5102. I'm a Facebook group, our Facebook group. Join us. There's always room for one more on the Facebook group. And of course, you need to join us because it's just a great thing to do. Be a part of this. Almost 100 people on the group. Be the next person who's in it. Who knows? You might be number 100 if you're not careful. Clearly the YouTube channel where this show is on, at Phil the Lip. Subscribe to that. Be part of that group. Who's subscribed to the actual YouTube channel in which the Lip is coming at you at. That'd be a great thing. Now, I have some words of wisdom for you. As far as it goes, it's very basic this time. There are people who are going to go and trick or treat with their kids. And I do say people are going to trick or treat with their kids. Sometimes it's like you send your kids out trick or treating not so that they can get the candy, but so that you can get the candy. And for those people, I would certainly say your willpower is as strong as a toothpick. One more time. Those people who literally send their children out to go trick-or-treating because they want the candy, their willpower is as powerful as a toothpick. Willpower is powerful as a toothpick. Send your minions out to go collect the candy for you. And you, of course, are going to have to check the candy for the kids. And when you do that, they're going to be missing some that you think is not good. I believe that that's how it's going to work sometimes. But on that note, I will say that this episode of Mt Rushmore number 3 was interesting. And like I said, it went long enough where I thought that I have a Mt Rushmore number 4 category that I didn't get to in Mt Rushmore number 3. So it's going to definitely piggyback off of that. There's going to be one that I'm going to use that I liked that I didn't get to. But I believe that all things are clear. I said it before and I'll say it again. I mean, as this episode is being released on November 1st, 2025, means that yesterday, as of the release, would have been Halloween, December 31st, 2025. And that day is pretty significant. Halloween was my grandmother's birthday, and this past Halloween, as you're listening to this, would have been my grandmother's 100th birthday. Yeah, she would have been 100 on Halloween 2025. And on that note, my name is Phil, and you've just listened to The Lip.